If you love to travel, you are going to need a travel agent. And if you want the best travel agent, you are going to need Booley's Travel. Booley's Travel can help you with any kind of holiday wherever you want to go in the world, taking care of every last detail. From package holidays through to fully customised itineraries where you are completely in control of where you go and what you do. And the best part, there are no charges whatsoever. Rated excellent on Trustpilot. Start your next adventure right now by going to booleystravel.com. Hello and welcome to the final episode of our Canadian series, where we've been deep diving at different regions across Canada and speaking to the experts who really know what you should be doing in those zones. And today we are joined by Michael Brabin of Destination Vancouver and Tourism Whistler, who's based in the UK here with us, and he's going to be telling us everything that we need to know about Vancouver and Whistler. So thanks for joining us today, Michael. How are you doing?
Yeah, really good, thanks.
Excellent. So could you tell us a little bit about yourself, Michael, and how you started off in travel and how you come to represent Canada?
Yeah, absolutely. I started in travel, I think, about 25 years ago on the sales phone as a tour operator. I just got hooked on the industry, worked in various roles from managing small companies to doing marketing, product, and ended up in purchasing before taking the leap to do representation, which I've always wanted to do. And the opportunity came up. So I've been doing about 5 years or so now, and loving it, especially when you're promoting destinations like Whistler and Vancouver. It doesn't feel like a difficult job.
Yeah, so you obviously have a good insight into the industry then, and been around for quite a while there. I think something that always appealed to me is Vancouver. I don't know what it was, but I tried to emigrate there when I was much younger, when I was a younger man with a family. I tried to emigrate there, but just couldn't make the points as it was. So it's somewhere that I've always wanted to get out to and go and explore in a great lot of details. I'm looking forward to today, really, and everything else that you can tell us about the place. Yeah, can you think of your favourite moment or memory about British Columbia that kind of comes to mind first?
Do you know what? The one that immediately springs to mind right now and nicely incorporates the two destinations. I love a float plane. Any excuse to do a float plane tour, to get a float plane somewhere, I just think it's brilliant. And this summer, I was lucky enough to do the float plane transfer, taking off from Green Lake in Whistler, flying over glaciers down through the Sea to Sky Highway and landing slap bang in the middle of downtown Vancouver in the harbour there. I just thought that was so special. I just couldn't remove the smile from my face the whole time. And also seeing Whistler and Blackcomb Mountains by air as well. It was just, incredible, absolutely incredible.
That sounds absolutely amazing. So let's take a look now at Vancouver, we're going to look at it being a year-round city today because a lot of Canadian things associated with winter sports and things like that. But what can you tell us about Vancouver in the summer?
Like you say about being a year-round city, I think sometimes it's forgotten how big Canada is, and the temperature varies massively from different areas that you go to. From a Vancouver perspective, it's very mild. The winters are mild. You don't get some of those much. I don't want to talk badly about other destinations in Canada, but some areas they get the snow because of the temperatures, which fall dramatically over the winter. Whereas actually Vancouver temperatures are often close to the UK over the winter, a bit hotter generally over the summer. But as a city, it's just so green, and you are not alone in wanting to move there. I rarely meet somebody that's been to Vancouver that doesn't come back and say, I would move there in an instant. Then they have a look at house prices and they feel slightly different about it. But I think the thing that really sets Vancouver apart is wherever you are in the city, you can either see the ocean, green spaces, the mountains. So while it's a city, it doesn't really feel like it because you've got this incredible fresh air and there's nature surrounding you.
Yeah. I always love, like, I said it's more than just a winter destination, but I do love the snowy places. I always have. So why is Vancouver such a good place to go in the winter?
Stanley Park, which is the 1,000 acres of forest, is a rainforest. So there is a clue there into what to expect over the winter. And certainly you need to go prepared with a Mac because the temperature really can do anything at that time. And again, a bit like the UK, they never get snow in the city. And when they do, everything shuts down. So it's that kind of mentality over in Vancouver. It's not a city that's used to having snow. With that said, the mountains that surround it, there are 3 ski resorts. Whistler is only 2 hours up the road. So winter sports are available in and around. But what I love about Vancouver over the winter is there's everything pretty much you can do in the summer. Give or take, some of the whale watching trips will stop and the bears will be hibernating then. But there's just so much other things going on in Vancouver and you really get the city to yourself. And the other thing unique to the winter with Vancouver is going to watch the Canucks, their ice hockey team, play, which is an experience like nothing else. The stadium's only 20,000 big, which when you compare that to some Premier League football teams, seems quite small, but it's right in the heart of downtown Vancouver, so you can wander over on match day, and while only 20,000, because people don't fly for 5 hours to see their away team, 98% of the people in the stadium are home team supporters. The other 2 are usually tourists. So when the home team scores, you've got a lid on it. It just erupts. There's pyrotechnics going off, light shows. Conversely, when the away team score, you don't even know what's happened. I certainly do because I have no idea what's going on, but it's just such a great sport to watch. You sit there with a hot dog in one hand, a beer in the other, you're praying for a fight on the ice, clearly. You usually get one, and it's just brilliant. You get chatting with the people next to you who explain the sport to you because Vancouverites are super friendly. As you find throughout Canada, it's a really friendly country. And it's little things like that you can't really do anywhere else in the world that just make that winter stay so special.
I'm completely sold. I love ice hockey. I used to play for under 16s for a local team, and I absolutely love it. And that's one of the reasons I think that drew me towards kind of Canada anyway, because they have such incredible ice hockey teams. There's a whole other level to what we have over here, isn't it?
Oh, completely. And they seem to play like every single day about 70 times. So even if there isn't a Canucks match on while you're there, or you don't want the expense of going to see one live, there's so many great bars that you can go into, and the hockey will be on and it will be packed. It's just a really great atmosphere from that, and it's just in their blood in Canada. Ice hockey, it is their football, really.
Yeah.
So it's really nice to get that buzz and that feel of going to those big matches or being in the pub when they're playing.
Okay, so can we have a look now at different types of travellers? What's some seasonal highlights that families could really get involved in?
Families, interestingly, with Western Canada, families aren't as common to travel over the kind of spring through fall months. Quite often you see families going over to ski Whistler over the winter and then they'll come and spend a bit of time. But it's not as common over the summer. And I really think it's a huge shame because you look slightly further south and they're piling into California to go and visit plastic animals and people in animal suits, but they could come to Canada and see the most amazing wildlife. And one time in particular that I think personally is completely overlooked is April and the Easter school holidays, because at that time of year you can still go and ski Whistler, and often some of the ski resorts in and around Vancouver are still open at that time of year. Everything in the city is open as it is year round, but even the whale watching has started then. The cruise ships up the Inside Passage to Alaska have started then as well. The bears at the top of Grouse Mountain, they've got some orphaned bears at the top called Grinder and Cooler, who are starting to get up and move around a bit. I personally think that's such a brilliant time for families, and it's one of the quietest and cheapest time in the whole year to visit. That 2 weeks of Easter holidays, I just think is brilliant. But then really through May to September, this is such an amazing part of the country to be. You've got Vancouver, this vibrant city, which is alive, so many activities, and then you take the Sea to Sky Highway up to Whistler, which in my view is one of the most beautiful drives in the world, and I would say certainly up there top one or two in Canada, with probably the Icefields Parkway being the other one. You've got that drive up to Whistler, and then for families, Whistler is just a mecca. Again, you've got incredible bear watching there with its local population of black bears, one of the most dense population of black bears anywhere in Canada. And you go on a real proper safari in 4x4s to go and find bears and look at them. That's just something incredibly special to do if you're a family. And then the adventure, the activities, whether it's mountain biking down Whistler Mountain or it's taking one of the gentle paths around Whistler. There's so much to do there. And it's the same in Vancouver. Jumping on a Zodiac boat to go off whale watching for the day, or even just a quick 90-minute sightsee on the water, going on a float plane to do a 20-minute float plane excursion from Vancouver is surprisingly inexpensive, about 85, 90 quid per person at the moment for families. And that's helped a lot by the exchange rate, which is really good at the moment. And I think it's probably fair to say hasn't been for a while. And again, I've really noticed the difference this summer that made. And for a family of four, I'm sure it makes an absolutely massive difference. So I don't know. I think any time's a great time for families. I just would love to see that family market consider Western Canada more, because I just think it's perfect. And we're talking about two destinations, Vancouver and Whistler, before you've even ventured further over to Vancouver Islands and other areas within Western Canada. The scenery, the wildlife, the activities are just a phenomenon. And then the other customer that tends to come through tends to be your older customer, which again, there's loads for them. And the older customer is younger hearted than they've ever been before. They're doing zip lining and bungee jumping and going up in helicopters to do paddle boarding. It's an adventurous demographic that's going through Canada. And we do see some of those younger couples coming in as well now who are looking for a bit of adventure and wildlife and everything that this area has to cover. And I know it feels like I've given you a bit of a politician's answer with that, but it's difficult for Canada not to attract somebody. I guess the reality is, though, you do have scheduled long-haul flights included, which aren't inexpensive in themselves. And again, this is a really popular destination. So again, it does come with a price tag. But like I say, while that loses maybe some of the younger, early 20s demographic, when you're comparing what you can get in Canada, especially south of the border, your money certainly goes a lot further.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say there is for couples to do then? Is it a couple's place or?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it depends whether you want to talk to your partner or not. If you don't, there's places like the Scandinav Spa up in Whistler, which is silent. You just enjoy yourself. And sorry, I was being a little facetious then. And in terms of couples, again, there's hotels really for any budget. And there's a real there's a real different product when it comes to Whistler when you're looking at summer versus winter. Whereas Vancouver as a city, there's less dramatic changes in terms of what you can do between seasons, but it's really about what you're after as a couple. This isn't the Maldives. This isn't go and sit in your hotel and enjoy each other's company and relax. This is a bit more of an active holiday. You are out and about and you're doing things. In downtown Vancouver, it's so compact that you can easily walk anywhere within the city, the main area that you're going to be exploring. You're going to want to jump on bikes at some point and cycle around the 10 kilometers of trail that circles Stanley Park. You're going to want to get involved with the food scene, which is absolutely incredible. And it has Michelin star dining, and it's something that we've been promoting heavily over the last few years with Michelin accreditation in Vancouver. And while I think it's great to have that kind of internationally understood brand, the quality of food in Vancouver has always been there, has always been up to that standard. But personally, what excites me when I go to Vancouver is all the little pop-ups and street food and interesting places you can go to eat. I went to a place called Disco Cheetah last time I was there, which is Korean chicken. It's an in-joke within HQ at Destination Vancouver that I will never visit unless I get to go to Japa Dogs, which is hot dogs and Japanese food combined. And because of its history of being a kind of melting pot of different cultures, the food scene, in a way, not dissimilar to the UK, where we do international food really well. It's the same over in Vancouver, but feels like it's next level, especially when it comes to Asian or Central and South American food. These mixes and these hybrids of the cuisine just make eating out there phenomenal. And also, if you're not going to Michelin places and you're finding these small, quirky local places to eat, is incredible. And that's even before we start talking about Granville Island, which in itself is this huge foodie hub with its public market. And a lot of people will choose, if they're going over to Granville, to do a food tour there, which is just a brilliant way to try probably a dozen, 15 little tidbits from the stalls around there, because otherwise the market is a bit overwhelming. There's just so much to do. But then there's food tours in downtown areas as well. And generally, because people don't have a huge amount of time, Vancouver is one element of a tour for them. Those food tours are just a brilliant way for couples to engage with the food scene in Vancouver and try a lot of different things over a short period of time.
Yeah, and I think tours, they are becoming a lot more prevalent today. I think a lot more people are prepared to get out on them. But it just changes the entire experience you have when you visit a destination. Having a tour from a local, somebody who knows a bit more. For the old days of just flying in and doing your own thing, there's still people that like to do that. But I think they're really missing so much of an experience, an immersive experience. It just changes the entire trip on its head when you just start to have, even if it's a half-day tour, the things that you learn about. It really changes the experience massively, I think.
I completely agree. And not only do you get that kind of energy and insight from a local, you get that history of the area you're in. I did a Gastown tour, which is one of the neighbourhoods in Vancouver. It was actually the original neighbourhood of what is now the downtown core, started by a guy called Gassy Jack, who You know, like many of the characters of his time, when we revisit it from a history perspective, there are many questions to be answered, and most of them not overly positive. But again, really getting under the skin and understanding the history and the culture of the time, along with eating at some amazing restaurants, I think it really does add something. And as you say, that local knowledge goes a really long way, because it's not just about your tour then and there. They'll give you those tips of, if you like that, here's another restaurant to go to, or have you considered doing that activity? So yeah, I'm massively pro on doing some of those tours. And also it is quite a nice way to meet other people. I can't speak for every relationship, but when we go on holiday, my wife goes out of her way not to speak to me, and I don't blame her. So actually having some conversations, meeting some other people, it cuts up the holiday a little bit as well. It's just a really lovely experience. And it's worth noting, because we're mentioning it as well, that's something that you can do in Whistler. There are some really great food tours in Whistler, and Whistler couldn't be further away from European resorts in some ways, and in other ways it is similar in its setup. But the one thing that varies massively is the dining culture. The ski chalets that are completely catered is just not something that people do in Canada. In my past life, I've tried explaining to hoteliers the concept of half board in Whistler, and they just don't understand why anybody would want to eat in the same restaurant for every meal of their holiday, because that's not what you do. You go and eat out, and Whistler has over 200 bars and restaurants. Some of the best sushi I've had in my life is in Whistler. It's only 45 minutes away from the coast, so incredibly fresh seafood. Again, amazing Asian food. There's fondue, there's pubs, there's so many great places to eat. So again, food tours, I think, especially over the summer, generally that winter customer, if they're coming to ski, they're usually staying an average of 10 nights. So it's a longer stay. They are going to try a lot of different restaurants over that time. But again, that summer customer tends to be 3 to 4 nights. And the food tours, again, just a really great way of not just trying a lot of the great food in Whistler, but learning about how the resort came about.
Yeah, absolutely. You brought us very nicely into our next chapter, which is neighbourhoods, culture and culinary experiences. So Vancouver is really famous for its neighbourhoods, and they all have their own unique identity. So we've talked about one, but what other areas should travellers explore to get a genuine feel for the city?
Well, I think the first thing to point out is these are neighbourhoods. It's still, the majority are within the compact downtown core. It's not like you're having to jump in a car or get public transport, although there is wonderful transport there. You can just wander from one neighborhood to the next. Where the float plane landed me back after my flight down from Whistler is called Coal Harbour. So that looks over Stanley Park. It's where you'll find the cruise terminal. It's this modern promenade looking out across the mountains. That's a really nice place to sit, go to a pub or one of the seafood restaurants in the evening and watch the sun set. Again, I love a float plane, so I could spend all day watching the float planes taking off and landing. And then you come through, that kind of connects with the Gastown region, as I mentioned, the oldest area. And then if you keep going, you come to Chinatown. Now, I know that every city pretty much has a Chinatown, but the history, the connection there with the Chinese population, the story is a phenomenal one. That a lot of Chinese immigrants were brought over to build the railroad across Canada. That's how it started. The working conditions were horrific. And when they finished the railroad, really they were given nothing in terms of rights. And the Chinese population got together in what was then this unwanted pocket of Vancouver. There was some real interaction with the indigenous nations around, and they taught each other how to farm the land and shared a lot of their techniques and their learning, set up schools together. So that Chinatown element, there's 3 different museums about the Chinese heritage and history. And if I'm honest, I didn't even know this myself until I was there this year. And it's phenomenal. And with that comes one of the largest Chinese populations outside of China, certainly the largest within Canada. And the food, again, it's a theme for me. I just love to eat when I'm out there. I come back twice the man I was when I went, but again, the food is incredible. So I really recommend. I get the impression sometimes people go Chinatown. We've got one of those in this city that's local to me, or all these other cities I've visited, but I really recommend people take some time to go there. There's some beautiful botanic gardens as well, which are very relaxed and quiet. And then you have to hop on a water taxi. That is an absolute must. There are these small commuter little ferries that you just hop on. They're like a bus, really. You find a pier, you wait for one, you pay literally a few bucks, a couple of quid, and they will pootle you up False Creek, which is this body of water around Vancouver. And then you can get up to places like Granville Island and then jump back on them after you've done your Granville tour and go into the West End. The West End is another big area within the downtown core. You'll find loads of shopping there. Again, something that's not really thought of with Vancouver is shopping. I've never known why, because again, it's a metropolis and the shopping is phenomenal, whether you're after high street, top end luxury boutiques, you name it. And sorry to hark back to the exchange rate, but it's there and it's phenomenal. And there is outlet shopping as well by the airport as well. If you want to buy a nice CK jumper before you jet off, it's all there. But the shopping in downtown is phenomenal. The food I've mentioned, and there's beaches. People don't really consider beaches when they come to Canada, but they're there, and on a hot weekend they are absolutely bustling with locals. So it's always good to pick up some food and take it down to the beach, have a chat with locals. And then probably the other the other neighborhood I've not really mentioned is Yaletown, which is an old warehouse district, now quite an upmarket place to stay, mostly residential. But there's a couple of streets there. I think it's Mainland Street and Hamilton, and they are just buzzing in the evening. They're pedestrianized, and it's just restaurant and bar after restaurant and bar are just a brilliant place to go and have some drinks and dinner before you hit the hay.
So what would you say are like the strongest hot kind of food topics right now out there? What's kind of anything new that has to be tried?
I mean, there's constantly new restaurants coming up. Bannock and Salmon, the First Nations Indigenous restaurant, is always something that's really unique. But it's difficult to say with Vancouver because there's just so much stuff there. What I'd encourage people to do is just find some different areas, find some cuisine that they've not had before and get stuck in, and also look at some of those little like food trucks or food vans. Over January, if you're there in winter, they have this food truck festival where all of these food trucks pop up offering different options. And often you find both in Vancouver and in Whistler, if you are in kind of shoulder seasons, so later in autumn or earlier in spring or April, there's often loads of offers and deals, half aimed at locals to get them filling the restaurants over the quieter times. So there's some brilliant times that you can get some amazing food in these destinations and pay a lot less than you do over some of the peak periods.
This is the end of part 1. Make sure you like and follow for part 2. Know anybody who loves to travel? Share this podcast on your socials and introduce them to the Jason Bull Travel Podcast.